Hi, I'm Emily from Life So Savory, and today I'm going to show you a really simple way to make adorable thumb cuffs. My kids are crazy about this style, and while I might think it's a little bit silly, they love it. So I had to figure out a way to make it easily on things that I was sewing for them. So I know that there is a lot of actual tutorials out there and ways to make a thumb hole cuff. This is a very simple way. It's only one of the ways, but it's really easy and I love doing it. So on this tunic, I put some embroidery. It's a simple tunic pattern. We added one cuff, and today we're going to add the other. So after you've cut your cuff, and again, just to recap on how to cut a cuff, is you want it double the height. So when you fold it over, that's how tall your cuff will be. And then you also need it double the width. So I want to make sure that, yep, that fits onto my sleeve. If you want to gather in the bottom of your sleeve, then you actually need to make your cuff smaller than the bottom. But because this is actually a pretty narrow sleeve, I'm keeping it approximately the same width. All right, so once you've determined the size of your cuff, you're gonna go ahead and start by folding it in half with right sides together with the length going side to side. So this is actually the top and the bottom, or will be the top and the bottom, okay? And this is for a child's cuff. There are directions on the site that also give the measurements for an adult cuff if you're looking for that. So I want to take my little measuring tool and I'm going to measure the middle 2 inches of my cuff. So this actually happens to be a 6-inch cuff. So I can pin 2 inches in, 2 inches in the middle, and 2 inches on the other side. But whatever your height, you just want to mark the middle 2 inches, and then we're going to go ahead and sew that. Okay, and when you're sewing knit fabric, as this rib cuff material is, you want to make sure that you're using a stretch thread. I'm just using a narrow seam allowance here and sewing those middle 2 inches. Okay, so once we have that sewn, then it takes a little maneuvering, but it's a very easy project. So I take the 2 top sides and I fold them in to get them out of the way. And then I fold over the top layer till the right sides are together, and I just have 2 layers of fabric touching. Then what I want to do is sew from the middle stitching to the edge of the cuff. So you just want to slide it in. Try not to catch any of those other under layers. Top stitch and sew down to the edge. Now here's where it starts to look a little bit wonky, but we don't really have to worry about it until we're all finished. So then you maneuver the cuff until you can find the other 2 loose edges. Just kind of move fabric out of the way, and then you're going to put the right sides together and grab those other 2 sides and sew down from the middle to the edge as well. All right, now comes a little bit of a puzzle because things look really mixed up, but what you just need to do is maneuver the fabric around until you have all the seams on the inside and the finished stitching is all hidden. So now we have a open thumb hole cuff that we can put onto the sleeve. Okay, so the easiest way that I like to put on cuffs is to turn the arm of this garment inside out, so the cuff can go on the outside, okay? Because then we'll have right sides together and the cuff will stay attached as it's just nicely in here. I like to line up the thumb hole cuff with the underarm. As you can see on any shirt you're wearing, this approximately lines up with your thumb. So that's where I like to line it up. If you want to do it another spot, that is fine. And so those 2 loose sides of the cuff that aren't attached will meet at the center or at that arm seam. Okay, so I'm going to pin those 2 in place, and you try to get them as close as possible together so that you don't have a gap. You want them to meet nice and tight at the cuff or at that seam. And then you just adjust the other bit of the cuff so that it fits in pretty tightly, so you don't really need to pin it, but you can if you want. So now I have pins holding those two sides together and one opposite, and I'm gonna serge around to not only finish the edge, but give it a great finished look. And tiny armholes are a little bit hard to get in your serger, but with some maneuvering, you can do it. So I like to just go slow. Make sure you get your pins out of the way. You don't want to cut those with the blade. But I also do want to make sure that my pieces stay together. Like sewing any cuff, you're actually sewing 3 layers of fabric, 2 layers of cuff, and 1 layer of sleeve. So you want to make sure that you're catching all of those in your stitches. And with such a tiny cuff, it's a lot of start and stop, but the results are worth it. With a bigger cuff, you'll be able to sew a little bit more smoothly. All right, and when you get around, you can go ahead and clip your threads, then turn your arm back right side out. Now, I like to make these cuffs nice and long because there are some times when having your thumb through your cuff is not convenient, like dinner time. So we can also use these cuffs just as regular cuffs if you fold it over and wear it like that. So you have a really cute option to have your thumb through the cuff, keep your hands warm in the cold months, or fold it over and just have a regular looking cuff.